What is up out there, survivors? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Survive Paddy Plays. I hope you're all keeping well out there. I know that things are very crazy right now with everything that is going on in the world, but I just hope that wherever you are safe and you are well. I just wanted to reach out today to do something that I've not really done yet on the channel. I've done retrospectives, reviews, news, and all that jazz, but I haven't done any kind of a speculation video. Now, speculation videos are kind of like videos where people kind of throw out an idea for what they'd like to see with a sequel and things like that. And I've started to watch a lot of these on YouTube and get quite into them. I do think they're really, really cool. But I have not tried one yet because I didn't feel like I had something that I wanted to speculate on. That has changed, however, because there is something that I do want to kind of draw attention to, and it is the Resident Evil 4 remake. Now, at the moment, Capcom have not officially announced that this remake is in development, but all signs are pointing to yes, this is happening. It's more than likely going to be after Resident Evil 8, but people are saying that this, behind the scenes, is most definitely going ahead. Now, first of all, I want to say that I am not one of the people who think that Resident Evil 4 is above being remade. I do think that if Resident Evil 4 was remade tomorrow in the same style as 2 and 3, we would A, be feeling the fatigue from the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes coming out so close to each other, and then another remake in that same style, and B, bar the addition of being able to move your character while aiming, it wouldn't really change the flow or feel of that game all that much. And so I think that my first point, and it's one you will probably disagree with, and that is fine because we are allowed to have different opinions about these things. But my first point is that I do think that that Resident Evil 4 is at a point in its life where it could be remade. I absolutely adore this game. I have played it through probably I would say 20 plus times, but what I find about this game personally is that the pacing is not perfect. It does sag in places. I think that the game has one of the best openings and kind of first 2 hours of any Resident Evil game, if not any game. And then it also has like an incredible finale, and like the last 2 hours are insanely good as well. But I do feel like there's a big chunk in the middle that is very poorly paced, and that is just my thinking. That just comes from every time I go back to replay this game, I hit a point where I go, Jesus Christ, how much longer does this go on? And I think that points to some bad pacing. That is, as I say, just my opinion. So I think from a pacing perspective, this game could be improved. Resident Evil 4 Remake is the type of game, or Resident Evil 4 Remake, no, Resident Evil 4 is the type of game that has always divided fans of the series, because some people, it was the first Resident Evil game they ever played, and it blew their friggin' minds, and they loved the character of Leon, and there wasn't all this baggage of a big, crazy, canonical story to deal with. There was very little tying back to the canon of previous Resident Evil games in Resident Evil 4. But then you have other people who feel that this was the point where the series started to move much more towards the action side of things and away from horror. And I personally have always felt that myself. I don't find Resident Evil 4 particularly scary. I think it has maybe one or two good jump scare moments, but I think it is definitely an action game. I remember back when Capcom showed off the Resident Evil 3.5, as it was kind of, as it's become known, but it was called Resident Evil 4 at the time. When they showed off the first footage from that, I remember thinking, oh my god, this looks incredible. It's such an evolution from Code Veronica. Even though it's still got a similar-ish style, it feels different, but it looks incredibly scary. With this whole kind of like the potential hallucinations that Leon is dealing with and stuff. And it just looked like it was dripping in atmosphere, something that in my opinion we hadn't really seen since probably the second game. I was going to say the first game, but no, the second game definitely had some incredible atmospheric moments. But yeah, I felt that like 4 is definitely moody, but it doesn't have that oppressive, claustrophobic, and that's down to the nature of the location and everything as well. But it doesn't have, it does in parts in the castle and stuff. But overall, I just feel like it's too broad of a game to feel truly scary. And Leon is far too overpowered, in my opinion, for it to feel truly scary. He's jumping out windows, and he's dealing roundhouse kicks, and he's never short on ammo because, every third Ganados that you kill drops ammo. And I definitely think that, yet again, there is room here, not only to remake Resident Evil 4 because it has been available for the guts of 16 years, and the pacing is not perfect, but there's also room to change it up because it definitely didn't have a lot of horror. We're getting to the meat of what I want to discuss now, and that ties into perspective. I am very much of the opinion that Resident Evil 4 would benefit massively, massively if it was remade in the style of Resident Evil 7, in a first-person style. Because the way I look at it is that when you remake 2 and 3, which were previously, isometric, pre-render background, classic fixed camera angle games in third-person over the shoulder, you are changing up the dynamic of those games quite significantly. If you remake Resident Evil 4 in third-person over the shoulder, you're not really changing it up all that much. I think going to first person will immediately add a layer of horror that wasn't there in the previous game. But I also think that it allows for the opportunity to make the game feel a lot more claustrophobic. When I play Resident Evil 7 in my VR headset, now admittedly that is definitely a much more claustrophobic game, just based on its setting and stuff, but I always feel so trapped because everything is right in front of your face. And I think that wandering around the Spanish countryside or into this terrifying castle, and I think all those locations would benefit so much from seeing them through a different perspective, especially giant monsters that you fight in that game. Seeing them from a new perspective would also be incredible. From a lore perspective, I feel like Capcom have been setting it up that they are looking to change elements of the lore in Resident Evil 4 and tie it more closely into the canon of 2, 3, and what would then follow afterwards. And I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that Shinji Mikami did not want Resident Evil 4 to tie directly back to the previous games. He wanted to just kill Umbrella off screen. Yeah, Umbrella shut down, they're gone, that's no big deal. We've got a new threat, And he tried very hard to not tie Resident Evil 4 back to the lore and canon of those previous games. I think whoever is there at Capcom right now, and forgive me for my lack of knowledge on names of developers and stuff, but I think that there is definitely a push towards bridging the gaps between 3 and 4 that previously didn't exist. This is evident in the Resident Evil 3 remake, where they directly tie the Nemesis parasite to the Las Plagas parasite of Resident Evil 4. And I said Ganados earlier, but was that the ones from... No, those weren't. The 5, they're called something else, Maginis or something. Yeah, no, it was Ganados. But yeah, the Las Plagas parasite, they kind of directly link that to the Nemesis parasite, and to me that creates an interesting perspective again from a story point of view to look at Resident Evil 4 through a slightly different lens. And so I would love to see that reflected not only in the story but in the gameplay by changing it up and not giving us an overpowered Leon like we had, and instead focusing more on the kind of... I mean, it should be a terrifying setting. You're talking very H.P. Lovecraft, Dagon-esque, character in this kind of rural village, cultists everywhere, this guy pulling everybody's strings and puppeteering them. They've got a parasite that's controlling them. This should be absolutely terrifying, but it's just Resident Evil 4, for as great a game as it is, and I will never deny that, I think it is phenomenal. It's not scary, and I really would challenge the idea that it is scary. I don't believe that it is. And there's some really frustrating sections as well, like the Krauser knife fight. Like, that is just unnecessary and kind of annoying. And again, I feel like there's a much better way of doing that in a modern way, if it even needs to happen at all. Yeah, I think I would love to see Capcom return to this game with this kind of new perspective, first person, seeing everything through Leon's eyes, a much less OP Leon having to deal with this terrifying outbreak in this little rural village. more directly linked lore, and I think that with a lot of those components, there is a compelling argument to be made for why Resident Evil 4 should, and obviously at this point will, be remade. Now, a lot of people have said, why haven't they remade Code Veronica instead next, or Dino Crisis, or all these other games? And I think that definitely on Capcom's part, and I'm not trying to understand one of the most enigmatic developers in the world, but I definitely feel that they are looking at successes, not. I think if they were going off, okay, what are the series that people would love to see remade? We would get Code Veronica, we would get Outbreak File 1 and File 2, but I think Capcom are not looking at that. They're looking at what's sold best. Resident Evil 2, 3, 4, and so I think that is why we are getting a 4 remake and not a Code Veronica remake. I will say that it does shock me that we haven't received a Resident Evil Outbreak or Outbreak File 2 remake, solely on the basis that the assets should more or less be already there. I mean, a lot of the Resident Evil 2 and 3 assets could be reused very easily to recreate Raccoon City for a Resident Evil Outbreak game. So I am definitely a little surprised, but again, I think it's because I was working in game retail at the time that Outbreak came out, and I can tell you that it was not a runaway financial success. I think a lot of people were confused about the online component of it, didn't know if they could play it without online. So I think that there was this hesitance from a lot of people when I was working in Games World a long, long time ago to buy the game just because they were unsure if they could even play it. But anyway, I'm getting off track as I always do when talking about Resident Evil. I was here to talk about Resident Evil 4, and I'm going to return to that now. Resident Evil 4 should be remade, in my opinion, in this new style. I think that if they do remake it in the style of 2 and 3, it will still be great. I'll still play the hell out of it, and I'll still probably enjoy the hell out of it. But I do think that there's a huge opportunity here to shake things up quite dramatically. And if we've seen anything with Capcom in the past 2 decades of Resident Evil's lifespan, it's that when Resident Evil starts to underperform critically or commercially, Capcom don't hesitate in changing things up and trying something new. I think we saw that after Resident Evil 6 was massively financially successful, but it wasn't very critically loved. Now, if you look at Resident Evil 3 Remake, that's very similar. It was massively financially beneficial for Capcom, but it was very mixed and divisive with critics. I personally really enjoyed it. Now, I totally understand why somebody wouldn't, and that is totally fair. I think there are a lot of people who are scared of the idea of a Resident Evil 4 remake because they're afraid that this is going to damage or destroy your favorite game. And again, I do understand that, and I do empathize, but what I always say in these situations is that, guess what? That game exists. You will always be able to go back and play it. There's an amazing Resident Evil 4 remaster fan project that has done absolute miracles to the game. And so, the game is still going to exist all the places that you've played it in the past, but maybe if we're going to go down this road and get a new Resident Evil 4, maybe let's not just do the exact same thing this time. That's just my thoughts, and you can absolutely, I'm not joking when I say this, and you can 100% disagree. There's a comment section down there. You can get involved. You can tell me why you disagree with me fundamentally on this. But I do believe that if Resident Evil 8 goes the direction that people are talking, which is first-person cult kind of characters and kind of a lot more supernatural elements, I think that there's a good opportunity there to kind of piggyback off that with a Resident Evil 4 remake in a similar style. But yeah, I know that this is going to be a divisive opinion, and I apologize. But I also don't, because I just wanted to share this with you. So guys, that has been my speculation video on Resident Evil 4 Remake. I would genuinely love it if you guys could get involved in the comments below and tell me what you think. Would you like to see Resident Evil 4 in first person? Or do you think it should follow the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake route? Also, did you ever find that about Resident Evil 4 about the pacing? Or do you think it's an absolutely perfect game, flawlessly paced? Do you think it's scary? Because as I say, I personally do not and have never thought that this game is particularly scary. But yeah, just sound off. I want to thank you so much for checking out this video. I really do appreciate it. And as I say, I'm sure it's going to be divisive, but that's what I'm here for. I want to create discussion about the things we love, which is horror games. And yeah, I am really interested in hearing what you guys think, or if you're just like, Paddy, shut the hell up, bro. You're a crazy lunatic. You're crazy ganados, and my head's gonna explode, and Las Plagas is gonna burst out of it. I wish I was good enough at VFX to actually do that. That would have been great. Oh well. Instead, you're just gonna get a really badly animated like sprite. Enjoy. um, Thank you so much again. If you like the videos, if you liked this video, please hit the subscribe button and stick around. Also, if you didn't like this video, please go off and check out some of the other ones, because while you might not like this particular one, there's some other really cool content here on the channel, especially Let's Survive interviews and a bunch of other cool stuff that we've been sharing with y'all pretty much daily since the 24th of April. If you like what we're doing, stick around. And from the bottom of my little green heart, let's survive together, guys. And it gets harder by the day, but there's always people here for you. And as always, peace out.